Well, on Disney Plus, it was a show, I think it was called like Marvel What Ifs. And with every franchise, they had this is an alternate thing that happened. And so there was one for Black Panther. I couldn't bring myself to watch it, and then I just forgot. And so all that extra footage that they had of Chadwick, they used in that. And so that made me think, I wonder if that means that they're not going to use it in the movie. And this was like a year or so ago. And so I'm thinking that maybe they had to limit it because maybe they're not sure. With like, this is a very different situation. Like any other time you find out, oh, well, Terrence Howard is no longer Iron Man's friend because they wouldn't pay him. And so they replace, but this is like, this dude is legit gone, which people forget, like Don Cheadle was not the original. They screwed Terrence Howard. And it makes me not be as annoyed with Terrence Howard when you realize he is the one that convinced those motherfuckers to even hire what's his name to even be Iron Man, because he was toxic, because he was a drug addict. He convinced them, because they were friends like in real life, and then he's like, this is very successful, can I get some money? No, we're going to replace you with somebody that looks nothing like you. He's just another nigger.
Such a diss.
It is a diss. It's like when you stab somebody and then turn. It's like you did not need to do that.
It's like you didn't even get somebody that looks like him. No, it's just any black guy will do.
Like you didn't get another red dude. No, you purposely went we're gonna get somebody shorter, darker, not even the same type of black man, like at all. Because you know why? Because he just needs a nigga on his side. It doesn't matter. Y'all motherfuckers come in all shapes and colors, and we about to exploit the fuck out of that.
Welcome to Tangentially Speaking, the podcast where we have in-depth and entertaining conversations with a lot of tangents that always, eventually connect two seemingly unrelated topics.
I am Nikki.
And I'm Nita Sharice.
Today we're discussing Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, directed by Ryan Coogler and written by Ryan Coogler and Joe Cole. Wakanda Forever was released nationwide on November 11th of this year and pulled in $84.3 million on its first day and can be seen at a theater near you. Beautiful movie.
It's gorgeous.
Gorgeous black folks.
It's just the lighting and everything, the costume, the wardrobe, it was just visually, the hair.
Yes.
So, like homegirls, the little American girl, the scientist inventor girl,
Riri Williams.
Her braids,
I love,
so beautiful. Oh my!
Her braids were tight. Her skin was popping.
It's just.
And you mentioned the costuming and the wardrobe. That is the great Ruth Carter. We will link to her. And I want to say that she's from New Orleans.
She's also an alumni of the Boys and Girls Clubs of America.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Ruth knows her stuff.
Yeah,
Ruth, she's perfect. Those dresses.
First Black Panther, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And she's one of those people, because of course I never heard of her, but people who are in the industry knew who she was. And everybody who they would speak to about her kind of had that attitude of like, good, like Ruth is she finally got on something where now everybody can know, like we've always known, y'all are late, but she's on her stuff. Those dresses that the Dora Milaje had on as they were carrying the coffin, it was like this cold shoulder, but then a bell sleeve on the other side. Like those dresses are bad. Like this, on my second watch, I was able to notice those things. So the first watch, it was just tears and shut up and eat your popcorn, because we brought the kids with us because we wanted to make it a family outing. We were all dressed. And in reality, right after, my sister and I were like, yeah, when are we going to see this again without them? And so I sat down and was like, I didn't see that. Because I was probably like going in my purse where I had all the snacks and things like that. But those dresses were bad.
Yeah, when I took the boys, like first it was emotionally hefty, just remembering that Chadwick Boseman died, and so it was opening with mourning, reliving that, because he was truly he was just one of the best of humanity. He was just a really cool person.
First Black Panther, of course, affected me, but this one even more so. And then it was weird to see how it's actually real life, because we did lose this person for real. And there's certain parts of the movie where it just seemed like Marvel was like, yeah, this is about Chadwick. Like, we know. Like, to the point where, like, they even said, oh, the king died of an undisclosed illness. It's like, okay, they're just being like, yeah, Chadwick Boseman died, and now the UN is trying to take vibranium from Baltimore. Like, I'm just like, wait, what are we doing? But it's fine. Like, it's like, I literally felt like, yeah, this is a funeral. I did not know this man. I never met him, but I really do feel like, man, Chad is dead. Like somebody that we really knew. It was, I enjoyed it. I've seen people like that didn't like it, but to me, those are people that just want to be contrary, and I'm just like, yeah, you're stupid. Your reasons are dumb.
Just everything that we've been through over the past couple of years, just the heaviness of it all. There was so much loss and so much death every day. So during my first watch, I think that I sensed that. But also I was trying to like protect the kids, both mentally and physically, so I didn't really lose myself in the story as much as I did during the second watch. During the second watch, like that theme, it was so prevalent all the way through, and I appreciated it because it was kind of like purging, needing to purge, and then really needing to investigate what we do with our grief, in the face of loss. So I just thought that it was just, no, it didn't have anything to do with the Marvel storyline. It was a great departure from Marvel lore, as I hear. And I'm not a Marvel's comics enthusiast at all, but from the chatter that I heard in response to it was like, oh, and this was not supposed to happen this way, with Shuri becoming the Panther because she's supposed to become a goddess or something. Here's what I sometimes now see, back when Black Panther happened and Chadwick Boseman passed, I was already hearing, oh, Shuri's going to be the person because that's in the comics. Like one thing that kind of gets me, I know that comics have a general storyline, but very often different people write comics and they will write what they want to write. And so it's like, well, what version? Like, I guess there's one version that's like, this is the real version, but then like we get this celebrity writer to come and write something. Like that happens all the time. Like, I'm not a Marvel enthusiast, but my husband is. And so I will hear from him all the time, like, oh yeah, well, what happens in the comics is such and such. But many times it'll be like, well, in this version. So if people were already talking about Shuri becoming the Black Panther back when like we first learned of what was happening with him, or like what had happened with him, it must be written down somewhere. And also, these people aren't real. So you can like do whatever pretty much you want them to do within the rules of the universe. Like, how many Spider-Men do we have? I'm so sick of him going home, returning home, thinking about going home, coming back. I forgot to go home, prodigal son. Really? We can have 85 Spider-Men? Really? And like, I should have took my ass back home.
Yeah, like stay home. Like I'm home alone. I miss my family. It's like, they got like issues with home and like staying his ass put. So if we can deal with that with Spider-Man, and then literally having 3 to 4 Spider-Man in one movie and acknowledging that and still having the movie and then talking about more, I think we can deal with like Black Panther's little sister becoming like, shut up. Just shut up.
People had all kinds of issues with it, whatever their opinion was. My whole thing was just like, I'm going to take it for what it was. It was a movie that I think a lot of people needed to see at this time, with messages
exactly
that resonated with and reflected real true to life concerns in Black and brown communities. Just how are we dealing with the grief of the trauma that we've experienced over centuries? That's what I love so much about Namor's story.
We're back to 1571.
Yes. Like we forget, we often forget or don't understand what other civilizations have gone through, because if you grew up in the United States, all you get is American lore. You get American history, American folklore. It's like whatever happens outside of us doesn't really matter, or it's crafted from the American perspective, not necessarily from that nation's perspective, and definitely not from the perspective of the people who are being exploited. I love the care that they took with those details in telling that story. And then I actually love that there wasn't a clear villain. You could understand both sides of the issue, and you can also understand why their anger was ultimately misplaced.
Very much so. Yeah, yes. We can get into that, because at one point in the movie I was like, this is beautiful, but we're facing in the wrong direction. We both need to look that way. What is happening here? But yeah. There was a lot. Like I pretty much, I'm on par with you as far as the themes of the movie of like grief and closure. It was actually cathartic to watch the second time around. Not having kids with me, and things like that, like just watching it and being like, wow, this is really true. Wow, like I can literally I can apply this to different times in my life. I can apply it to now, as well as the themes of, and I'll just say this line for the movie because it sums it up great. At the end of the movie, when Okoye says, the colonizer in chains, and now I've seen it all. It's like I love how they don't let you forget what this is. Like, this is Marvel. It's a nice popcorny movie, but this is about real shit. Like, more so than the other storylines in Marvel. Like, this one is real, and I think that's why it's so impactful, because at its heart, it is like, this is a superhero movie, but it's a superhero movie with like teeth, because it is based in real shit. And we see it happening now. Like, we lost Chadwick Boseman in 2020, the same year that we lost Kobe Bryant, George Floyd, like all this upheaval is happening. It's all just like, this is really real. And I liked how they pretty much from jump was like, this is going to be an ode to Chadwick Boseman. Like, even the Marvel, the little logo that comes up where they usually have the little pages of everybody different. I was like, wow, these are just all scenes from Black Panther. And then this other time, it was just quiet. Like, both times, no one said anything.
Oh my goodness.
It was quiet. Like, people were like, I was like, there's about to be a preacher.
No, the entire film, I was just like, everyone is so quiet.
I know how I feel, but the kids though, like,
yeah,
they know Chadwick as Black Panther. We have all these other things, as other people that he's played, but that's Black Panther for children. And so, that was hard to see, but I really like how Marvel handled it. I like that it was just all Chadwick. I also liked how they just started, like, they didn't have a lead up. They just started, and like, Shuri is trying to save her brother. Yeah. And the way they handled it without ever seeing him, because I was curious, like, how is this going to be done? Like, in the days leading up to it. And they just did it. And I even liked how they kept the theme of like, it was an undisclosed illness. Like, and I think that I have to imagine for the actors, it was also cathartic, because they didn't really have to act that, because from all accounts that we've gotten, no one knew. The fact that they handled that with like, it was an undisclosed illness. He didn't tell me until it was too late, and like, just seeing them cry, like, even when Danae Guerrera, I think is how you say her name, when they do a close up of her carrying the coffin and she's crying, that shit looked real. Like, she's crying about Chadwick. Like, this, it was all real. And I have to imagine that was probably good and cathartic for them, because how sad is it to go back to shoot the movie and like the main person isn't there. And soon after he passed, the medical community or whatever, whether they made the announcement then or people were just highlighting it then, they moved the minimum age of getting colonoscopies.
Why should there be an age limit? That just doesn't make sense. But so the first funeral, goodness, that one affected me like so heavily. And when I had time to figure out why, it's because when my grandmother died, she insisted that everyone wear white. I've been to not two homegoing celebrations like that where we all wore white. And so it kind of reminded me of that, but it was such a beautiful expression because it just made me proud that we had held on to something like that was so important to us. I was just sitting there like trying to hide myself crying while the boys were with me. While I was alone, it was just, I had, the time to appreciate the costuming, the beauty of the people, the movement. It felt like a real funeral. I know I'm watching a make-believe show, but it felt very much like a real funeral just turned up. The volume turned so high up. We are African.
Yes.
And it was just amazing. It was amazing.
And that's what I mean by like, that had to have been cathartic because that shines through. Like, this was real. This wasn't like we are actors. We know that the real Chadwick is right over there. Because he's not. Like, he really is. And man, it's just, and I was reading about like I noticed like with African traditions that you are supposed to wear white. Growing up, when you're having like a church funeral, people would usually wear black. I would see sometimes where the family would be in white. And then like everybody else would be in black. But growing up, I didn't know that was actually related to the African tradition because of the belief around, like I pulled, I don't know who this person is, but it is a blog. And it says, the color that represents mourning varies depending on each culture and the belief of the place. In India and some African countries, they use white based on the same superstition to hide from the spirits of the deceased. However, today, the color white also represents purity of the soul. And then this person like goes through different things. But one other thing they say is like another reason is because white was the most affordable fabric color and one that like a lot of people already had. But it also like made me start thinking like, did we a lot of the times wear black, like is that an American thing? Is that a white thing? Like where did the black come in? Because I only just in recent, meaning like the last 10 years or so, started seeing white at funerals here. I definitely like the white more, and then knowing that it actually has roots in something like makes it even more important.
Starkfuneral.com says the tradition dates back to the ancient Romans when mourners would adopt a darker colored toga to show they were in mourning. But then this one says, Kirsty Salisbury, that is, she says, black is traditional color of mourning throughout America, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, but it's less about spirituality, religion, or symbolism, and more about the fashion and wealth. So wearing black mourning clothing was a symbol of wealth in Europe in the Middle Ages. Only the richest people could afford to wear black. And the widows like competed with each other to see who was wearing the most fabulous funeral garb. So it was all about flaunting. Well, that's crazy. That's
it really is
energy to bring to a funeral. Like, no way. Why?
Because humanity is trash. There has to be a hierarchy, no matter what. There's got to be a hierarchy, even in death. Like that's why like funeral companies prey on people grieving with like, do you want to bury them in this like leather bound casket that I have heard that many times they like people spend all this money or something that like nobody's going to see. And then like later they go dig that shit up and then replace it with a pine box and you never know.
Yeah.
It's just like recycling the same. Yeah, that's awful. That's horrible. It's like, I mean, I'm somebody, I would like for my caskets to look good, but I'm leaving word. Like, can y'all just rent that shit? Because I can't do nothing with that. But while you see me, yes, I would like a, like, you know, cream and like an off, like a pearl white, something that's real cute. That epitomizes me, but you don't pay for that stuff.
Okay.
Don't pay for it.
You know, you ever seen them designer ass caskets where it has like football mascot and shit on it? And
Like where it's like wrapped, basically.
But there some depending on what it is, there'd be hella extras and shit. Like people that have their caskets look like a car or something.
Oh, no. See, no.
Yeah, the people do some crazy shit with their caskets.
I just want it to be fancy, but you can rent it. Like, and then just put me in a box. I'm underground. I'm above ground.
See, I don't even want all of that. Like cremate me or turn me into a tree. Like, just
you and these fucking trees. Like,
the givers of life. What's wrong with you?
I'm mad at you for having a green shirt on right now.
You know what my shirt says? My shirt says, "Sage that shit." I don't like that. They had some sort of satellite location in Mali, and concurrently there was, the audience, it feels like it's concurrent, but it's actually, they've done
You mean when they're breaking into an outreach center while Queen Ramunda is at the United Nations? Yeah, that was confusing. When I saw it a second, I was like, wait a minute. I thought like my reference of time was kind of messed up throughout like the entire movie because they did make that seem like meanwhile.
I guess they were providing the background simultaneously.
Yeah.
You know, it's I thought it was engaging. You know, I realized
it was really good. I realized on my second watch, like, wait, I had that wrong. Like, you know, like in thinking about how things were happening. But again, you have to be paying attention.
Yeah.
When you have kids with you, people are like, you know, like you look away for a minute and then I would come in and think that I knew what I was looking at. I really liked that part. Like, I liked how they had it happening. You know, like we see it happening as she is making her glorious entrance into like, I'm sorry, Angela Bassett is a real queen. Like she's queen of Bassetonia. Angela Bassett, when her hair was short in the white afro, I was just like, I loved it. That woman, you look like a goddess. You look like like, oh my God, like you're magic walking. She is gorgeous. Even when I'm like, okay, this is supposed to be really, really sad seeing it, but you know, it was my second time seeing it. When she was down in the water like that, she had drowned. I was like, her clavicles and shoulder blades, though, they are gorgeous. She's so fit. She drowned right. But do you know why she's fit? I know you saw that clip that was widely shared about a year ago where she quickly goes through what her regimen is.
Like Monday, Tuesday, I may eat carbs, fruit. Tuesday, Wednesday, I may do protein, veggies every day. No fats those 4 days. And then the last 3 days, I flood it with fat. Good fat, though. Maybe coconut oil, salmon, almonds, almond butter, you know, olive oil, walnut oil, that sort of thing. I don't do any dairy. All right. I don't do any bread, flour. People were sharing it like, bitches, she just gave the secret. Pause this and write it down. And it boils down to what we all know we just don't want to do is bitch eats right and works out. Like, yeah. And it doesn't seem like she punishes herself. Like, I'm sure if she like wants a Snickers, she has one. But for the most part, she's like, I don't do bread. Like I do it on these days. You know, like just to kind of, I guess, control like how much bread you're having. Because if you don't have some kind of plan in mind, you'll just eat all the bread. Hi, my name is Nita. And so like, that's why that bitch looks like she looks. I recently saw a TikTok on that where there was the science community at some point in the 60s or whatever, they did a study and they built a food pyramid. Mm-hmm. And the smallest portions were the breads and the crackers.
So even the food pyramid that we were shown is a scam? These are not the recommendations of the nutritionists who actually did the research.
That's right.
Though a team of nutritionists had carefully formulated the guidelines of what to eat for optimal health, their recommendations just didn't sit well with the big name food corporations, and so they were changed. This is Louise Light. She was the nutritionist team lead, and even she said herself that the changes that the USDA made it clear that the food pyramid was ultimately just sold to the highest bidder. In the version that the nutritionists had, dairy did not have its own section, but in the version that was shown to the public, they did. This suggests that dairy is required for a healthy diet, when it's not. The nutritionists recommended 5 to 9 daily servings of fruits and vegetables. In the version shown to the public, it said 2 to 3 servings instead, over 50% less. The nutritionists also recommended only having 3 to 4 servings of breads and cereals, but the version shown to the public said 6 to 11 servings instead.
I pretty much limit my intake. I did like go ham on that fucking cake. It just got better with each
What cake? Oh, your cake?
It got better every single day.
Do we need to do a pineapple upside down cake episode? Did you know your ass is gonna go deep on like the First Nation to like cultivate a pineapple? And how niggas actually invented pineapple, but then some nigga named Ignatius D. Dole ended up getting like all of them.
Okay.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay,
There is this other podcast that kind of talked about what, like, just how the food pyramid is directly related to companies that sold whatever food and like lobbyists. And so like, that's how it's like, no, you need to eat more of this because this is what we sell. And it had nothing to do with like the actual, like science and like body chemistry and things. God, this country is so fucked up.
Anything for $1.
I don't want to go down that road because like yesterday I went down this road of like, we all think that we're free. Like that's the thing that you learn in school. Like what's unique about America is like the democracy and the free, and it feels really good. And you're like, oh, these other poor countries, like, they don't get to choose anything and do anything. And the more you look into like policies and like things that are becoming law, it's like, it's the same thing. We just have a better sales pitch. Like, this is your choice. You can do whatever you want. And it's like, if you have enough money, yeah. But if not, you might as well be in China where they're like, you are only allowed 2 children. And if it's a girl, fuck her, like kill it. My alarm bells went off when this girl was talking about how they're pushing more men to have vasectomies. They're starting like to not to want to tie tubes. And I've always been aware that if you're super young and you request that, they usually tell you no, because unless there's like a medical thing, because I think that just kind of goes to like morals. But then how much of that is tied to the obsession in this country to like populate shit and to have access to bodies that add to the population? And so when she was saying that about the men being pushed more to have the vasectomies, that didn't sound right to me, because I'm like, nothing is ever pushed on men to alter anything in any way.
No. So
are they pushing white men to do this, or is it just, I was like, I'd be curious to know which men. Is this Black and brown men? And if it's a thing where now people don't want to tie tubes, well, why? Because I feel like if I want that, I should be able to get it. And she was like, well, if you're like married, if you're unmarried and like below a certain age, they want, if you have 3 kids. And I'm like, this is sounding real China-like.
I just came across this article, why men as young as 23 are choosing vasectomies in post-Roe America. U.S. procedure rates surge after court reverses Roe v. Wade. And the economic mood is not helping. I don't have no money to have no kids. I still am trying to fuck.
But see, I understand that. But what they were talking about was doctors. Like when you're in a situation where you're like, I'm trying to make a decision, they're starting to push men. That has never been. It's always, us. That's what kind of gave me alarm bells. Because of course the person who was telling me this was Black, and so the husband. And so I was like, I wonder, are they just encouraging certain groups? Because when doctors are involved.
So wait a minute, are you saying that they're encouraging Black men to get vasectomy?
No, I was wondering if it's just Black men. The overall consensus in the shop was, oh yeah, they're starting to suggest that more, which already sounded crazy to me because it's never suggested that men do anything by the medical community. The only time they go ham on men, from what I've seen, is when it comes to the prostate. But anything else, it's the woman, like everything is on you. You know, if you can't have a child, they're just now starting to be like, oh, let's test the guy too, because sometimes it can be him. So the other thing that you just read makes a lot of sense, because when Roe v. Wade was reversed, I saw tons of memes that were like, all right, so these motherfuckers are going to start getting vasectomies and things now. So if it's of your own volition, I get it. But to say that this is coming up in the doctor's office now, it makes me very curious as to like, what's behind that?
While 14.1% of white men had a vasectomy, only 3.7% of Black and 4.5% of Hispanic men reported vasectomy. Having ever been married, fathering 2 or more children, older age, and higher income were all associated with vasectomy.
Yeah, and I do know a lot of niggas that think that, because people are ignorant, that think that doing that is somehow taking away. It's like, you still have your dick, you dumbass. It's nothing to do with that. Or like this comedian was talking about, like,
if I get a vasectomy, how high will my voice go after that?
It will not.
I won't be talking, hey, Dr. G did my vasectomy.
No.
why are people stupid? Now he's a comedian, so I would hope that was just a joke, but I wouldn't be surprised if the nigga was like, yeah, I'm not joking.
I like how they take care with naming things. So when they named the AI Griot, that is African tradition. Everything from Kukulkan, that is Mesoamerican folklore. Then also like with Toussaint, the mention of Toussaint Louverture.
Yes.
And that man who was responsible for leading the Haitian Revolution.
Yeah, he's a liberator.
I just love the sprinkles of that. So yeah, I just wanted to know.
And just like marrying the fact with the fiction, so it's not like mindless fiction. It is actually connected to something, because when Nakia Lupita said his name, I'm like, of course that would be his name. I loved that they were in Haiti. Yeah, it was just like, yeah, the one nation that was like, fuck you, no. Like they're still paying for it, but that is the only place that I know of where it's like, no, this is successful. You were defiant. You declared yourselves separate and human. I appreciate the research that has been done and trying to stay as close as possible to the history. And my hope is that it causes people to like want to know the actual stories, like where is this stuff being drawn from.
We'll be providing links in the show notes.
Oh yeah, this is super link heavy.
This is what was so cool to me, and then I realized this was the case all throughout the movie. Black women led the show. It was just driven by Black women, and I love that so many people went to see this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And I hope there is not, I shouldn't even speak it to existence. I think people walked away feeling entertained, but I hope, no, let me say.
Don't claim that.
I don't want to claim it. I just hope that, because I got the sense that people are like, well, the storyline was problematic or whatever, because blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, were you entertained? Because so fucking what? Were you entertained, or does it bother you that a man wasn't at the center of this? Like, we were talking about T'Challa's funeral, T'Challa's death. So if you want to think about it, he was at the center of it, okay? And then you had Namor, he was a dude, so that should have been enough dude for you. So like, what's the problem?
There's not enough dick in this movie. Extra on the dick, please. Not enough. Yeah, I heard a little bit of that, but for the most part, I think people were just they were entertained and mourning Chadwick. But this movie has done a great job attending to actual history. And you and I have talked a lot about how even the religions that are based in Africa, like the female is definitely the center of like the entire thing. So it makes sense. Like it is as it should be.
I love that this movie came out during also Woman King, even though that's not an absolutely accurate depiction of what happened then. It still like invites you to learn more about that history. Yeah, so I just love the fact that these films are out concurrently, and it was all of the Black women in the theater were just, and then also
like, yes, finally, we never get this. This is awesome.
Yeah, and then even before they came on, when they showed a preview of Ariel, you know, the new Little Mermaid. Yeah. So it's just nice to see that representation. Even though, like, I feel like a kid again, and I'm not a kid. So I feel like I didn't have to wait so long for that. I'm happy that it happened in my lifetime, you know?
Yeah, it's affirming. And it also makes me very happy for our kids.
Yeah.
For whom they're just like, okay, yeah. The women led it. It was beautiful. It was maternal. Like, it was just, you just kept seeing those themes repeated, like a mother grieving, you know, and then when we get the reveal, like of Nakia, and, you know, like the thing that she's been holding, it's still all through the experience of what the woman is having. Like even him, even Namor talking about his story, it starts with his mom and a decision that she made. Like it was all about the women. And I just thought it was beautiful. Even the scene, like when she's having him, I'm like, oh, she's having a water birth. Like it was just very much like, this is resonating. Like, this is very much like the woman's experience and bringing life into the world, mourning the life that you had before your child, because he says that when she died sad, and she actually missed her life on the surface. And like that just brought out like a lot of like just like motherhood and like how you sometimes mourn like who you were before you made the decision to bring a child into the world, which then essentially changes who you are, because it has to change who you are. If you're going to be a good mother, you got to change a little bit. Otherwise, like you just out there wilding with your child.
But not just that, like the other sacrifice that she made, it's like, this is the thing that we all hope for as parents, that we get to see them through to adulthood, that we could just see them grow fully to whatever their potential is. And she never got a chance to see that because he was too young when she died. And I like how they showed that transition of time. She got older, you know, and that's it. Yeah, we're supposed to bury our parents, but no, we don't want to.
But not as children. And no, we don't want to. Even as a grown-ass adult, you're still like, I don't even like thinking about that. And at this point in our lives, it's becoming a thing, especially as people around you start to, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to.
I know so many people who have lost their one or more of their parents. And I'm just like, well, you know, young people aren't supposed to live with your parents. Oh no, you're not young anymore. You're old. So this is the time. Like, what's wrong?
I was like,
I'm still young.
I'm going to work Sunday. What you talking about? I got to take my ibuprofen first, but I'm going.
Yeah. It's like, I've been stretching for the past 3 days.
I am in willful denial. That's why, you know, mom's in the hospital. I'm like, get up. You need to fix my snack or Zoe's snack. Or, oh no, I have Zoe. What does that mean?
Yeah, this shit is like, I think that is therein lies the tragedy of life. Like, it just keeps on going. And I feel like I've just been standing still. Like, this is how trees, this is why I like trees, because this is how trees feel.
Brought this back to trees. Wow, that is.
You know, those people over there, like the ancient civilizations over there, they mixed with Africans. Africans were going over there during all that time. So it was beautiful to see that side of the story. It's just like, oh, cousin, what's been going on with you? You know, where did you come from? What's your struggle? Where is your trauma from? Because I know that you suffered like my people have. And I love that underlying message throughout the movie.
You know, I think that's one thing that like Black and brown people share. even though there are divisions within, for the most part, we know what's up. Like, we know what they do, to countries that have something that they want, but they don't want, like, all they have to do is just, hey, I don't know, maybe look at us as people and as a country worth like trading with, and like, let's act like countries do. No, it's more like, no, I want that. Fuck the people, literally and figuratively, and like take the stuff, and then just move on. And so for them not to naturally go into like, let's get the US and France and whoever else, was crazy to me. But I get it for like, remember, this is a superhero movie, like we're tackling all these things, but it's still, in my opinion, like, well, if they realized that and fought against at once, then we couldn't have this protracted battle scene on top of the Titanic, basically. And then like, well, now let's come together. And it's like, y'all should have already known that. And why couldn't we go after Julia Louis-Dreyfus earlier? Because she played her part to where I'm like, yeah, I hate her now. It would have been satisfying to me personally if from that conversation, he was like, you know what? Hold up. Let me return you home. Let's work on our battle plan to join forces, because we're that much more powerful above and below the surface, rather than fighting and killing each other for a little while before getting it.
See, that's where I think it was so very much reflective of what goes on in real life, because I think the problem with Black and brown people is that ego comes first, and no one was willing to give. The more he could have came in a peaceful way, not crept in the middle of the night.
I thought it was very inconsiderate to be like, yeah, help us, and also fuck you. I can imagine that they would have considered it if he had come at them as like, one leader to another. I'm respecting your sovereignty as it relates to your country, and I want you to respect mine. But he just came out there like, it's your son's fault. So bring us this person and kill him. Here's my cell shell. Call me when you're ready to talk. And she's just like, excuse me?
That neither one of these nations have ever actually been conquered or overcome. So they're not coming from a standpoint of, we know what it is to go to war and what the cost of that war is. They've never had to deal with that shit. So imagine like the egos on these people.
The egos,
yeah. And that, like I said, like I liked how they brought that up, because if you go back in African history, why did the slave trade proliferate? It's because people were having beef with each other, people that shared the same land or shared the same resources. In this case, they both share vibranium. So they have more in common than anybody else. Back in the day, Europeans came in, the colonizers came in, exploited those differences to cause war in order to generate more contributions to the slave trade. So I'm just like, let's not contribute to that shit. Why were these people at war in the first place? Sometimes it was over some like petty shit, some really ego-driven shit. And I'm just like, this isn't the real enemy. Meanwhile, they're raping resources and people. They took human capital. And so the vibranium, to me, like, that's representative of the capital they're trying to get their hands on, the resources that we're the treasure. So why are we fighting against each other?
Yeah. No, yeah. You're right. I mean, there must be conflict. And again, they got to make the money too, because now we know, like, they left it open for like, there's going to be a follow-up to this, because
it's such a fantastic franchise. It's amazing. It's people go to it. We are loyal to stuff where we see ourselves. Mm-hmm. We're kind of whores for it, really.
Oh, we are. Yeah. I mean, but when we haven't seen it, that's because from the beginning, it hasn't been there.
It hasn't been there, or compared to what we did have, like this took care with the cultural. It wasn't a simulacrum like with Coming to America.
When it's done by us, it is fabulous. The fight scenes were great. I know they had to lean into the infighting because, like you said, that is, what happens. But I think I was just eager to see, like, can we have on screen a nation like beating the US, or is that never going to happen? Because this is Marvel. I don't know. But
No, I like the next time I'm wondering if they're going to find some secret Asian society with vibranium too. And so all of them unite, like the United Colors of Benetton and so
Ooh.
that would be so visual.
Or like even India, that's like,
oh my God,
right there, because that's very much
so
like everywhere that has been colonized, like, because last I've seen, I don't see any people in China like speaking with British accents. But yeah, I am looking forward to the next. They haven't said specifically, but whenever you have like other little scenes that pop up in the credits, you're for sure like the story isn't over. And so we get the reveal of his son, and so obviously something's gonna happen there. Good. It was good. I was satisfied. Yeah. And I guess Marvel's new tag can just be, you just need a nigga on your side.
Wow, that's dark. It's pretty dark.
It is very dark. That's Marvel.
Thank you for listening to Tangentially Speaking. This podcast is recorded and produced by Nita Sharice and Nikki Ebo. Our theme music is Lush Living by Martin Landstrom. Our artwork was created by Prime Vice Studios. You can learn more about this intellectual property development agency at primevice.com. Find us on your favorite podcast player and YouTube. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. And be sure to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter.